I think if we're not careful, we might spend our entire lives trying to prove our worth to others instead of finding our own worth in God. Excited to have us all here for, like I said, miracle offering that's here today. And I just, as I think about, we've been in the book of Daniel, and I'll talk about that in a moment, but just want to acknowledge that God's planning is so incredibly powerful. There is no way when we decided that, hey, as a church, wouldn't it be cool if we went through the book of Daniel together? There's just no way that we could have known that every chapter would so perfectly line up with what's happening in our culture, with what's happening in our church. And even today, as we read through Daniel 11, well, we read through it before today, don't worry, we were prepping for the sermon before then. But even as we were thinking about today and seeing what chapter we were in, it's just amazing to see how God had such an amazing plan. And if he plans things like this so meticulously, how much more is he planning and caring for you? And so it's just an amazing thing. But hey, I have a question for you as we get into this text. I just want to ask, have you ever been caught in a conversation you just wish you could get out of? Right? There's two types of people, unfortunately. There's two types. There's those people who can get caught in those conversations, and then there are the trappers. All right, so if today you're thinking, well, no, I haven't really been caught. Every conversation I have is amazing and 3 hours long. I got bad news. You're one of those too. No, I'm just kidding. But I think we've all been in that situation, whether it's a grocery store or, it's happened for me, a Starbucks drive-through, or even here at church. We've all been stuck in them. But there's something about long conversations, right? There's some that I love having. There's some that I love diving deep into, taking 3 hours to just let's just talk and hang out. But there's another kind, that's the kind that makes me dread being in this conversation, the kind I want to get out of. And that's when the person just can't stop talking about themselves. When they just won't stop talking about themselves. One time, I got stuck in a conversation for so long. My last resort was just as they're still talking, I just turned my body away from them and started walking. I had no other plan. All of my no ways, cools, oh man, that's amazing. I was 20 in, and they just wouldn't stop talking. And what ended up happening was, it was another pastor. When he learned that I was a pastor as well, the conversation quickly shifted to the trials he's walked his church through, how much better the church is now that he's taken it over, and all these things. 3 hours of conversation of just what this pastor had done in his life. And not all pastors are this way, but there's this kind of sense that you can get from some individuals where, man, they're just looking to be the big shot. They're looking to be the big shot. Oh, let me tell you of why my church is better than most nonprofit organizations. Let me tell you why you can't view my church as just a church. It's really a school of ministry because of what I pour into it, right? There's this type of conversation that at least I get stuck in, that maybe you do as well in your own field as well, but just looking to be a big shot. And I think it isn't fun being in these conversations because you know that person doesn't really want to talk to you. That person just wants you to talk about them. They want you to talk about them. And I think we should take a minute and reflect in our own lives. Maybe we don't trap people in conversations for 3 hours at a time to talk about what we've accomplished and to work through. But I think we're all guilty of this in some way or another. And I think if we're not careful, we might spend our entire lives trying to prove our worth to others instead of finding our own worth in God. And so we've been in the book of Daniel, and Daniel has showed us how it doesn't matter what they strip away from you. It doesn't matter what title they assign to you. Daniel knew who he was. Daniel knew who he was, and he walked through every single moment knowing what God has given him as far as his worth. And it changed the way he reacted. It changed the way he spent in different situations. It changed the way he responded to people. And he wasn't looking to be a big shot. He was just looking to follow what God had for him. So in Daniel 11 today, which we've been through this entire book so far, you can go back and listen to the messages. There's an overarching theme that's continuing in Daniel 11. And it is the theme that there is a pattern of sin and a promise of salvation. In every vision we see, there's a pattern that humankind falls into, but a promise of redemption, a promise of a new way to strive to be human, a new way that we can interact with each other. And the book is all about these prophecy and visions of a time when God will forever break this cycle that we're in. But today, as we read through 11, I want us to zoom in on a character that we learn about in Daniel 11. This character is described as the self-exalting king. This is the big shot king. This is the king that disrespects everyone else, that views himself as better than everyone else. And this is what he looked like. I want us to look at what his life looked like and ultimately how his life ended. Let's read Daniel 11, starting at 36. The king, the self-exalting king, will do as he pleases, exalting himself and claiming to be greater than every god, even blaspheming the God of gods. He will succeed, but only until the time of wrath is complete. Remember, we learned even when it doesn't look like it, God is in control. So we know that from this. But for what has been determined will surely take place. He will have no respect for the gods of his ancestors, or for the God loved by women, or for any other god, for he will boast that he is greater than them all. This is the king you don't want to be stuck in a conversation with. This is a king that is better than God, is better than all of these different things. He succeeds in all he does. He respects no one but himself. I guarantee you, if you got stuck in a room with him, you would learn all about him, and he would learn nothing about you. Because what does it matter? But I want us to see how his story ends. At the end of Daniel 11, we learn this: he will stop between the glorious holy mountain and the sea and will pitch his royal tents. But while he is there, his time will suddenly run out. And get this, no one will help him. No one will help this big shot king that's above everyone else. And now I get it. You read this and you don't think, all right, well, I think I'm doing pretty good. I'm not overthrowing any cities. I'm not trampling any armies, any people under my feet. I'm not putting up idols in a temple. But I think this is a big example of a simple truth. When you only lift yourself, you'll eventually stand alone. When you only lift yourself, you'll eventually stand alone. Because here's the truth that I just want you to have in your heart today. You are called to be a blessing, not a big shot. You're called to be a blessing, not a big shot. You're called to be a blessing, not a boss. You're called to be a blessing, not a bigot. You're called to be a blessing. That's what Jesus is calling us into. And so we learn this simple truth from 11. All right, well, here's the pattern of sin. Here's the pattern of sin. If you want to function in the pattern of sin, here's the end for you. You'll spend your entire life trying to prove your worth to others. And at the end of your life, you will stand alone. You'll stand alone, which is not what we want, which is not what we're hoping for. And so I want us to fast forward from this story to the story of a man that taught us a new way to be human. Jesus came to earth not just to die on the cross for our sins, but to teach us the perfect way to be human. To teach us the perfect way of how we were to interact with each other. And so we're going to read Paul's writing to the church, describing what it is to be human like Jesus. To be human like Jesus. So in Philippians 2, verses 3 through 9, let's read this together. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourself, not looking to your own interest, but each of you to the interest of the others. In your relationships with one another, I love this, have the same mindset as Jesus Christ, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. And let's hear how this story ends as opposed to the self-exalting king. Therefore, God exalted him to the highest place and gave him the name that is above every other name. Do you realize that Jesus was within his full right to claim he was better than us? He absolutely was better than us. He had every right to do that. But instead of demanding that he be served, he served others. Instead of demanding to be fed, he fed thousands. And instead of punishing us for our own failures, he took on the blame himself. And what does it say? Therefore, God exalted him to the highest place and gave him the name that is above every other name. Have the mindset of Christ. Have the mindset of Christ. Break the pattern today. Break the pattern and step into the promise. We got to break the pattern and step into the promise. Today, we're actually going to practice this in our miracle offering. We're going to have a chance to not exalt ourselves, to not exalt our own name or our own accomplishments, but to exalt someone else who is humbling themselves. So today, we're exalting two missionaries in our miracle offering. Two different missionaries that have given their very lives, everything that they knew, to serve Jesus and to get other people to know about Jesus. And I think as we hear their stories, I just want us to understand exactly what it is that they've given up to serve Jesus. And I think you're gonna, by the end of this, realize it's worth being the blessing today to people like this. We're gonna watch this video from the Stookies that we're going to gift today, that we're going to give towards. I want to describe them a little bit. They talk about it in their video, but I got the privilege of just spending time with them and talking with them. And when people get on camera, they get a little more shy. And so I just wanted to introduce them before we hear about it. These two individuals, they had a very successful chiropractic business when they were called to be missionaries. They were making good money serving. They were on the leadership team at their church. They were very comfortable, and they heard a call to become a missionary. They sold their practice. They uprooted their entire lives just to perform free chiropractic work in another country, just for the off chance that they'll be able to tell someone about Jesus while they're performing their practice. And so let's learn a little bit of who the Stookies are and how we're supporting them.
Hello, Restoration Church. We are Chris and Cindy, and we serve with Live Dead Africa. Chris and I were called to unreached people groups when we heard a missionary speak at the inner city church that we had helped to plant in Lynn, Massachusetts in the year 2006. We didn't even know what an unreached people group was at that time. We were attending the missions conference, and then the final night of that missions convention was when the missionary to unreached people groups spoke, and he explained what unreached people groups are. He said, if you would consider doing what my colleague said, quitting your job and selling your house and going overseas, would you consider going to a place where there are no Christians, where there is no church, and where the people have no access to the gospel? And so when this man spoke, Chris and I pretty much just looked at each other and said, we can do that. And so that's how God called us. And that was in March of 2006. 9 months later, we had sold our home, and we were in a country in Northern Africa working with a Live Dead team.
And that was a tremendous experience. It was eye-opening, living in a Muslim culture. Well, actually, we both taught in a school, and I took care of patients out of our home as well. And since that time, after that time, in that first nation, we moved to a second Muslim country. We served 2 years there, and now we are 7 years into our third Muslim nation on the eastern side of Africa. And to talk a little bit about chiropractic on the field, we just love that we get to take care of people using chiropractic. So we just finished 7 years on the ground in the nation we're in, and what I did with the piece of equipment I had is I gave that to another practitioner where we serve. And so for the next term coming up, beginning in 2026, we hope to have a new chiropractic treatment table to have that shipped to us while we're on the field over there.
So you may be asking yourself, why do you go over to the other side of the world and you're not preaching the gospel and you're not doing evangelism? And the reason that we don't do that is because we would be arrested and removed from the country immediately. So what you do, or what is effective when you go to a country that is hostile towards Christianity, or not welcoming at the very least towards Christianity, is you go in with something that's called a business as mission. And so our English center, where I teach English as a second language, and Chris's chiropractic clinic office in a government health clinic are the business as mission. We don't earn a paycheck at the English center or in the government health clinic. It's a free government health clinic. And so the way into people's hearts and lives in an unreached context that is somewhat hostile towards Christianity is you go in and you meet felt needs of the people there. And the people where we live and serve, they want to learn English because they want to study in university, or they want a job, maybe in the government or with the police or immigration, and they need English skills to be able to get these jobs. And as Chris said, we tell every patient that we believe we are followers of Jesus Christ, and we believe that God can heal them, and we offer to pray for them. And not one person has ever said no to being prayed for in the name of Jesus, whether it's for their own health, for the health of a family member, or for some other family issue that they have come in and told us about. And that's the way that we plant seeds and we sow seeds of the gospel into people's lives who don't have access to the Bible. It makes them hungry to know the truth. It makes them hungry to want to ask if they can have a Bible, and we can give them a Bible. We can give them that access.
So we really appreciate Restoration Church partnering with us. We've been partnering together for the last few years. You've been praying for our ministry in East Africa. You've been supporting us monthly. And if you are able to help us with this need of a new chiropractic table, then wonderful. Just know that we will be praying for you. We know you are a church that's growing. You're not just in one location, you're in many locations. And we pray that your ministry just continues to grow and lead more people to Jesus right here in New Hampshire.
Can't you sense how much they don't want to talk about themselves? He couldn't help it. He started praying for us at the end. How much do they give up in order to see God move. What they didn't quite convey, they were actually nervous that some of us would be scared out of being missionaries if they heard this. They face charges of jail time. They face these threats of jail time, of being kicked out of their homes, of being ostracized from the villages that they're in. They face these challenges daily just for having a Bible in their office while they're performing the chiropractic work. They are truly humble individuals that sacrifice so much. And so we want to bless them through Miracle Offering today with that chiropractic chair. Now that chair, the range of how much it will cost just varies on how much they're gonna charge us in shipping. So it could be from anywhere to $15,000 to $25,000. Sometimes they work through, like the shipping cost is 100% markup of the item's cost. So we're hoping they don't do that to us, but we don't want them to have to worry about that issue. And so as you're giving today, that's what we're doing. That's how we get to be a blessing. But there's another couple that we're going to celebrate today, because I just believe God has many miracles in store for this miracle offering. There's another couple that we know well, Chris and Anna Pike, that were here, that Chris had his own business doing work for people's homes, doing renovations and construction, had his own business doing this. When they felt the call into missions, they sold their home, they downsized their possessions, they moved through all these different things. He gave up that business, and instead of just fundraising and throwing money at a problem, they relocated to Africa to be a part of the ministry that was happening there. They wanted to get on the ground to learn about it. And so they gave up everything and became, I don't know what you're called for being the only white person in the entire area, but they just were those people walking around trying to learn about the culture and everything else. And so would you just welcome Chris Pike up as he's going to share a little bit about their organization and how we're going to partner with them. Oh, sorry, right there. Nope. We did sound check for him, so.
Yeah, I was too lazy. I couldn't do sound check. Thank you for having us. It's always good to be back here. This is the church that I grew up in and the church that we raised our kids in, and they're around this building somewhere today, and you'll see them. But my wife's, she's sitting over there with my son, Charlie. And this is all of them, too. I forgot there's pictures up there. This is us in Tanzania. But following Jesus, one thing that I always think about is accepting Jesus is the easy part because it's a free gift. It's for all of us. But following him is the hard part. And that's where it takes what Pastor Jeremy was talking about, is humility, to know or to believe that Jesus knows more about our lives and about our hearts than we do. And when he calls us to do something, to take that step of faith and do those things. And instead of being like, that was the devil that just said that to me, I'm not doing that. To be like, maybe Jesus is telling me to do X, Y, Z. It doesn't mean you're going to Tanzania. We didn't know we were going to Tanzania, but the things God started leading us in led up to that bigger step, if that makes sense. But like I was saying, this is our family. We've lived over in Tanzania for the last year. It's been a journey. It's been much harder than we expected, but also much more life-changing than we expected in a good way. And maybe you're asking, what the heck is Sozo? Maybe you've seen it on social media. What happened to Center of Hope? So we moved there originally in 2023. We became the directors in 2023 of Center of Hope, which was an orphanage that this church has supported for years and years and years. And in 2024, corruption came to light. The director over there was removed, and the government shut down the orphanage. And the 14 kids that were there, they were still under our care, though. We still believed that God was asking us to care for them and figure out ways to help them. And that's when it became clear for us that we needed to sell our house and move to Tanzania. And today seems like a day of selling houses. So who's putting their house on the market? Anyone? Anyone? But that is something that God was speaking to us over at least the last couple of years of our life. It wasn't like, sell your house, and like we knew God was saying that. It was a slow thing that God was speaking to us, and the way things were lining up, and the things he was asking us to do in our lives. And that is a step we took. We moved there with our 4 kids. Even they sold all their things. We had a huge yard sale. I remember giving them a bucket and said, fill this bucket, that's what you can save. And they saved it in storage, so whenever we come back, they get to open up their bucket and see all their fun stuff. And it's been a journey. But over the last year, we knew God, he was doing a new thing. Isaiah 43:19, they'll put up on the screen. I think it was before that slide. Yeah. Behold, I'm doing a new thing. Do you not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. God was doing a new thing, and it was clear to us. And that new thing, we believed we needed to close the Center of Hope, as everyone knows it, as the orphanage. We shut all of that down and started the new thing, which is called Sozo. And that's right there with the fireworks. You see that? That's Sozo. What is Sozo? What does Sozo mean? Sozo, it's a Greek word. It's in the Bible, and it means saved, healed, whole, delivered. And the mission of Sozo is to reunite children back with their families, to reunite these families that have been separated, and to also equip them through self-sustaining systems like education and business and farming, and to walk alongside them. But we believe that first step for each person is to bring healing to their minds and to their bodies and to their souls and spirit. Like every part of the person needs that. We just believe that a restored people, if you're restoring people, you're going to restore families, and restored families are going to restore communities. And it's a full circle thing. It starts with the individual, but moves to the family, and then moves to a community, and then the community should care for itself. In 2024, we started doing this process of reuniting kids with their family. And Mama Jessica, they're going to put her up on the screen, this family right here, they've been reunited over this last year. It was in April. We brought them all. They all came back together. We got them an apartment, furnished their house. Mama Jessica right here has been paralyzed in one leg since she was a kid, and after she had Jessica, who lived at the old Center of Hope. Don't go to that yet. That's a surprise. Just kidding. You go to it in a second. I'll tell you. She lived at the old Center of Hope, so Mama Jessica right here has been crawling around the ground for the last 15 years, and that was the original reason that she went there, to the old center. But through physical therapy and some doctor's appointments, she's actually walking. Now you can go. She, for the first time, is walking with crutches. And then her daughter, Joyce, if you go to the next slide, she is teacher Joyce. She went to school to be a teacher, and because her grades were so good, the government paid for her to go through schooling, which is great. So she's 29 years old, and now she is one of the teachers of our Sozo tutoring program, and she's preparing children to enter school, some of them for the first time, and helping others raise their grades. And we've already seen that happening. And then Abel, her son, I think it's the next slide, right there, the guy holding the ice pop. He is working for Sozo Ice Cream, which we started this year as well. It's a business that's employing 7 people now, and 3 of those people are from the Sozo families, the families we've been taking care of. And these are things that they are starting. We're just like, let's do this, and they jump in and do it. Isaac is right here. He's managing Sozo Ice Cream, and that is what we are hoping for over there, is create systems that self-sustain and show the rest of that community that's possible for them to come out of poverty, to come out of these things, these mindsets that they think they can't get out of. We also have Sozo Land, which should be the next slide. Yeah. Her name is Happiness, and yes, she is that happy. We have 8.5 acres of land that was generously bought for Sozo last year, and families have been working together to grow crops that are also feeding their household. So this next season, we're hoping that they're going to get 1 year of 1 year of corn that they'll be able to use per family that we have, and about a year maybe of beans, but obviously it depends on the harvest. So that's amazing, and that's something they're doing together. They even have put money in together on their own to hire some other people to help them. But how are we doing this? How are we going to bring healing and wholeness? Those are some of the practical things that we're doing. But in 2024, this is one of my favorite things. Go back to that other slide, sorry. These are the original kids that were at the Center of Hope, and a lot of them are still with us. But in 2024, we were caring for these 14 children in an orphanage. Today, we're walking with 45 family members and helping them build lasting hope together, which is amazing. So 14 children, now we're working with their families, and we've started. I wanted to show you guys so many different pictures, even ones I got yesterday, but time is limited. God is doing amazing things there, just by shifting the model just a little bit. And we're watching these families come together. But bringing them together is just one step. But walking with them for a couple years, that's a whole new ballgame. It's a whole new thing. And it requires social workers, it requires counselors and pastors that are going to come alongside us and be a part of the team that we need to hire to do this. Up there, you're going to see that the amazing thing about money in Africa is it goes much further than it does here. So for $400 a month, we can hire a professional social worker to work with us full time and start walking with these families. So they'll meet the families, they'll meet the neighbors, and they'll find out the real story. Why is this child was put in the orphanage in the first place? How can we get you guys back together? What kind of skills do you have? What can we help you use? How can we help you use what's already in your hands to better your family, to help your family grow? And that's a big part of what we're doing over this next year. And God never intended children to be alone. He intended them to be in loving families that they're never going to age out of. So we're seeing this. We're seeing these families reunited. We're giving them a fishing pole, and then we're teaching them to fish. And then the next step is teaching them to do what happens. What do you do when the fish run out? So we teach people to fish, but what happens when there's no more fish left? So you teach them, okay, now you gotta think differently and find another way. It's just this full circle thing to see these broken relationships with families being restored, and their broken relationships with God and what God is in their life, how God works in their life, seeing that restored. It's healing for their mind, for their body, their soul, and their spirit to create self-sustaining systems. And if you go back to the picture of Mama Jessica real quick, I think that's a very important picture, or like the one before that. To see this, Abel's not in this picture, but to see this family back together is what God desires. And that is what we want to be a part of, and that's what you guys are a part of. So I just want to thank you so much for every dollar that you've given, and to know that God is in this 100%, and we're doing everything we can to be as effective as possible to create lasting change for all these families. So thank you so much for being a part of that, and love being here with you all.